Ooh, there we go. All right. I'm literally standing in my closet right now because I'm packing. I'm going to the Ozarks for a wedding. And I'm just packing and for instance, I'm debating whether or not to take these things. All right, so I'm literally standing in my closet, having a dram of moonshine, packing everything up, going back to the Ozarks, and I clearly was not finished having a conversation about the Second Amendment. I mean, I can't even believe we're still having this conversation. Like, all of this time later, we're still having this conversation about gun control. Every single time something bad happens, everybody wants to scratch the itch and they want to ban something. They want to ban guns. We need to have universal background checks. We need to have gun registration, as if any of that is going to take a gun out of a criminal's hand. You know, prohibited possessors are always going to find a way to criminally carry. That's just how it is. I was actually pretty blown away by the stupidity of this article that I read on Vox today. And in fact, if you follow me on Twitter, you probably have picked up that I was none too pleased with it. But it was from Ezra Klein. It was this article I think it was Ezra Klein. I don't know who the hell it was. This article that was up on Vox. And they were saying, oh my gosh, look at how good Australia is. Look at how great Australia has it because they banned guns. They didn't just ban guns. I mean, they were confiscating firearms. They were telling people to turn your guns in. And they were saying, oh my gosh, we solved the problem of crime. We solved all of this because we banned guns in Australia. You know what happened? The homicide rate went, that was my thumb going up. The homicide rate skyrocketed. Assaults, rapes, robberies, all of that increased. Here's what's interesting. Suicide in Australia has actually been on the decrease, has been decreasing the past several years. And get this was something that Vox did not include in their article, which a lot of the Australian press has been covering. Firearm ownership, private firearm ownership in Australia is now back at the pre-ban 1996 levels. So you have gun control advocates who are out there claiming that the suicide rate in Australia is down. I mean, look at how it's decreased simultaneously while lamenting the ability of now private firearm ownership and the fact that it's at its pre-ban 1996 levels. Look, the United States, the combined murder and suicide rate of the United States comes nowhere close to the combined countries of like Belgium and France, and there's like 13 other countries. Honduras has some of the strictest gun control in the world, and it has the highest murder rate. I think it's something like there are only 6 guns per 100 people. And by the way, I don't have to Google any of this stuff because I care about the Second Amendment, and I'm not a paid fembot Bloomberg lobbyist, so I don't have to, everybody should know this stuff. In Honduras, it's something like 6 firearms per 100 people, whereas in the United States, it's like something like 88 firearms per 100 people. But yet Honduras is the one that has the highest murder rate. If you want to look at gun control, look at Japan, where guns don't exist in Japan. They don't exist in South Korea either. Japan has twice the suicide rate of the United States, and South Korea has the highest suicide rate in the world. That's certain things that Vox did not include in its piece when it was talking about firearm ownership and suicide and all of this other stuff. Clearly, I'm very passionate about this issue because I've had my life protected by a firearm, and I think that anybody who's ever had their life protected by a firearm before would be passionate about the issue. I hate what has happened. I hate the tragedy. I hate all of you don't like hearing about criminals acting like criminals. We have such a disregard for human life in these United States, which is why the other night I made mention of the fact that nobody bats an eye at the stuff Planned Parenthood does. Jacking organs from kids and selling them on the black market, that's felonious behavior. Nobody bats an eye at it because there's a complete lack of respect for life. That was going in the larger conversation of we glorify violence, we have created Frankenstein's monster, and so we're shocked when it acts out. That's what all of this is about. Where I come from, and actually where I'm going back to this weekend in the Ozarks, where Missouri prides its moonshine, just a dram. Everybody has firearms. I grew up with firearms. Everybody has a gun. My grandpa had a gun rack in the back of his car. Everybody has a gun rack in the back of their car. And you just assume that the shotguns and the rifles and all of that, that they're loaded. You know, it never occurred to me to mess with any of this stuff. It never occurred to me. But see, I was also raised simultaneously with a respect for life and a respect for firearms. So, you know, as you can tell, by the way, I love cowboy boots and I love hats. Just if you're seeing this stuff, I'm in my closet. If you've just joined me, I'm in my closet and I'm packing right now to go to a wedding. But on the conversation with Namiki, one of the things that Namiki said, which really stood out to me, is she was trying to argue that states have somehow like different standards where it concerns federal background checks. Do you know why they're called? First off, federal background checks have been in effect since the mid-90s with the Brady Act, right? That's like the Clinton era. They've been in effect for a really long time. The standards are uniform across the United States, hence the word federal background checks. That's just kind of how that works. There is a minimum, the minimum of what you can be, what is done in order to, what you can do to be flagged. If you go to purchase a gun, you fill out a 4473, you submit it, and they flag you. By the way, in 2010, get this, 76,000 applications were flagged and only 44 of them were actionable. So this system is so ridiculously erroneous. It's filled with errors. I'm not saying throw the background check system out, but what I am saying is that people who rely on this as their sole argument, it's stupid. But anyway, back to my point, Namiki was saying that states somehow have like their own little standards. No, you have the federal background check system, and you have federal law in terms of who can and who cannot legally carry and purchase a firearm. Now, anything above that is just stricter in terms of gun control. For instance, in South Carolina, in Charleston, everybody was talking about Dylan Roof, the murderous terrorist thug who shot up a church of good Christians. He passed a background check because the state agency, the federal government, the FBI ended up coming back later and said, oh, well, we improperly filed the documentation. So that's how that happened. We improperly filed the documentation. So Dylan Roof was able to purchase a gun because we're idiots. We're the government. It's kind of how that works, right? In addition to letting, murderous, racist, bigoted thugs purchase firearms to shoot up a good Christian church, they also dump all kinds of crap into a river and destroy it almost completely in Colorado. But in South Carolina, if you are simply charged with a felony, which is what Roof was, with felony drug possession, and I think he was also charged with like intent to distribute or something like that. He had a couple of charges pending, at least one of which was a felony charge. In South Carolina, all you have to do is be charged with a felony, and your Second Amendment right is immediately nullified. You don't get the legal right to carry. You don't get the legal right to purchase. That's not how any of that works. So anything beyond that is simply stricter. You can't go below the federal background check system and the requirements. So I'm not quite sure what argument she was trying to make there. These people are also trying to argue that, oh my gosh, there is a mass shooting that happens every single day. There's a trillion mass shootings that just happened this morning. I wrote about this in my book. Do you realize, like, when they were talking about the number of school shootings, they were making crap up? They were just, like, legit, straight up making it up. They were, in fact, one of them, this was in, like, Detroit. In fact, one of them was simply two drug dealers, drug dealers being what they are. They got into a fight over an exchange, over a sale, and the buyer was shot 2 blocks from a school. And the anti-gun brigade thought, oh my gosh, that's a school shooting. We need to put it on our list of school shootings. That's not how any of that stuff works. The bottom line is that you're always going to have criminals amongst you. Why? I don't understand the argument. Why is it that if a criminal has a firearm, I should be disarmed of mine? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, look, I like to think in my mind that I'm incredibly hardcore. I weigh $123 and I stand about 5'6". Sometimes I lie and I say 5'7". I say like I'm actually 5'7", but I'm not. So, if a dude comes at me, I need to level the playing field, especially if a dude comes at me with a gun. I need to level the playing field. My firearm is my equalizer. So this argument that, well, Dana, a criminal is actually going to come and could use a gun to hurt you. I'll hurt him first, because I guarantee you I got more training. I mean, that's how you answer that question. It's unfortunate that this happens after every single tragedy. I'm going to tell you what, my discussion last night on the Kelly file, that was one of the hardest ones that I've done, because, you know, I went on to talk about this issue immediately after you have a grieving father and a grieving fiance on the television. It's really hard because you feel their pain. You know, I've known people who have lost loved ones to guns, and I've had my life, and I've had the life of loved ones threatened before by nut jobs with a firearm. I wrote about this. I get very personal in my book, which I never really talked about before. So I get that. I get the grief, and it hurts the heart. But here's the thing, guys. Grief doesn't trump a right. And I don't want someone else's grief to also become my grief because I wasn't able to protect myself or someone that I loved. It's because I care, and it's because I love that I do what I do. It's because I care and because I love and because I believe all lives matter that I think all people should be able to lawfully protect themselves. That's what it comes down to. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation in my closet as I have a dram of moonshine and I pack my suitcase to go to the Ozarks to go and see my family for a wedding. And I will be broadcasting from St. Louis, my flagship station, tomorrow. So that should be pretty fun. In the meantime, don't ever be silent on this stuff. I have so many people who come up to me and they're like, I don't want to say anything because I'm not quite sure of the hate that I'm going to get. I'm not quite sure. I don't know if I know how to say things the way they need to be said. Speak up for your rights, because it's us not using our voices to speak up that has gotten us into the situation in the first place. Speak the truth even if your voice shakes. Speak the truth even if you're like me and you've had a 14-hour day and you're standing in your closet with a glass of moonshine talking to people on the internet just because you like to hang out with them. From Dallas. Thank you, guys. I'm going to figure out how to turn this thing off. I bet I don't know how much you want to bet. See.